Carrington Slipways has built 2 of the revolutionary mine hunters, and a third is slowly taking shape in its Tomago fiberglass division. The Navy took delivery of the Rush Cutter in 1986 and the Shoalwater in 1987 on the understanding that they'd be modified throughout their 2 years of sea trials. Carrington's has stuck to that agreement and has won recognition for the quality of work in the vessels.
We've had quality assurance certification by the Navy and also commendations from Kim Beazley.
Managing Director Don Laverick was therefore very surprised today to learn a joint committee has come out strongly against the project, criticising the 170-tonne vessels for not operating in seas over 1.5 metres and winds of over 20 knots.
Well, they were never intended to. They're inshore mine hunters for river, estuary and harbour work, so that's beside the point.
The committee also says the Navy should abandon work with a faulty German sonar and criticised the government for wasting millions by persevering with it.
We've put about 82 million in over about 6 or 7 years, and in the face of this failure, no one has had the courage to stand up and say, hey look, it's not working, let's try something else.
Don Laverick says the German-designed sonar was chosen by the RAN, not Carrington Slipways, and is the only real problem with the vessels. He says the Navy is now considering whether to replace the unit with a French, US or British version, which would bring the mine hunter back up to its high potential. The report has gone to Defence Minister Beazley, who is expected to comment in several weeks.
On greens that were running around the 13-second pace, the quality of the bowling was quite exceptional. At the end of 5 rounds, there was only one undefeated team, and that was the Terry Harmer-led Maitland City team, but they couldn't afford to rest on their recent good form, as there were 3 other teams right on their toes. Cameron Curtis, the youngster from the Sydney club The Hills, Doug Howard of the Waratah club, and Alan Gardner from Burrell all had 4 wins apiece, and one slipped by the leaders, and the tournament would have been wide open. But it wasn't to be, as Terry Harmer, with lead Kevin Franklin and second John Sheehan, withstood all challenges and played tight, consistent bowls to run out eventual winners 6 games with a surplus of 33 shots. Knights officials were quietly confident of success last night with Tony Kemp's appeal against his 3-week suspension for a high tackle on Cronulla's Jonathan Docking and named him in the team to meet the Raiders. But the New South Wales Rugby League judiciary dismissed Kemp's appeal and his ban remains. That's led to coach Alan McMahon moving in-form 5'8" Michael Hagan to centre to combat Meninga and Daly, and Steve Walters comes into the side at 5'8". And for McMahon, this is one of the toughest matches of the year for the Knights.
Very hard to predict. You know, Canberra, a very, very good side. You know, they had 7 that contributed to Tuesday night State of Origin. They've got other guys in the side who are probably unlucky to miss. So it's going to be one heck of a football game.
McMahon acknowledges the fact that the reborn Mal Meninga will be a real thorn in the side of the new boys in the Winfield Cup.
Well, Mal's a handful, isn't he? You know, he's 106 kilos. He's fairly quick. He's a great experienced campaigner. Yeah, he's a great player, but we've got some guys there, Glennie Miller and Michael Hagan, that I've got a lot of faith in. You know, Mal's a good player. We've got some good players outside Mal's. Laurie Daly's a great player. Played State of Origin. Johnny Ferguson. You know, they're well armoured. They've got a great side. But I've got a bit of faith in our guys too.
One player that is sure to get a warm reception at the International Sports Centre is Ivan Henjak, who will start on the bench. Henjak was the centre of a battle between the 2 clubs for his services, and he has mixed feelings about his welcome.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm going to enjoy it too much, whether I'm going to get a good reception or not, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. They've been playing really well this year, and it's going to be a great battle in the forwards, and it'll be a tough game, and it should be a very exciting one.
Mining operations came to a halt after a combined mining union meeting in Singleton today decided to strike against a local coal authority order at 2 Hunter Valley mines. The authority granted an application to Coal and Allied to prevent its men from taking industrial action at the company's Hunter Valley No. 1 and Mount Thorley mines. The mining unions claim the direction is an attack on their awards. The miners will meet in Branxton on Monday to discuss the dispute. Meanwhile, about 130 Transport Workers Union members are on strike till at least Monday morning at the Port Waratah coal loader. The dispute over a redundancy issue has delayed loading operations on 4 ships. TWU members have rejected a company redundancy package to 29 employees. Since the men went on strike yesterday, the company has agreed to fresh talks on voluntary retirements, and this will be put to the men at a meeting on Monday morning. And late today, the State Rail Authority added to the problems facing the coal companies. The SRA has announced a 5% rise in freight charges for export coal from the 1st of June. Freight charges were originally scheduled to rise in January, but were deferred to allow consultation and consideration of submissions from the industry and the New South Wales Coal Association.
Bill Buchanan recorded a personal triumph today when he ran onto Burwell Oval at Nelson Bay in the Australian rules football match between Newcastle City and Nelson Bay. After a career spanning 1.5 decades, Bill became only the second player in Newcastle Aussie rules history to notch 300 games. Bill received a wonderful reception from his own teammates and supporters, and also the accolades of the opposing players and spectators. For Bill, it was a very proud moment.
Yes, most certainly. It's been a long time, but I'm glad it's here finally.
And it must be a rare thing these days, Bill, 300 games with the one club. That's loyalty.
Yeah, well, it's 18 seasons now, non-stop, and it's starting to tell, I'm afraid, but I've made it.
Is 1989 your final season?
Yeah, for sure.
2 youngsters watched intently as proceedings unfolded, Bill's twin sons Jason on the left and Scott, and they were full of pride at their father's feats. Bill's achievements read like a champion should. He's played in 8 grand finals, winning 4, has represented Newcastle on numerous occasions, and also Northern New South Wales once. Bill's retirement won't be a total loss to City, as he will maintain an administrative position within the club. Tonight at the Cambridge Hotel, there will be just the odd celebratory drink or 3 and a few yarns about the good old days. Well done, Bill Buchanan.
For a day, industrial unrest was forgotten when the coal industry joined forces in the interest of safety. Threatening bad weather kept much of the crowds away, but the 16 teams were in top form as they ran, crawled and climbed their way through 9 exercises designed to test their rescue skills. Every year the organisers plan secret events, and as usual, only seconds before each exercise, the teams are told what they'll encounter. Highlights included a blazing fire set off by leaking diesel drums and gas cylinders. Less serious was the skills training, where only fitness and good-natured cheating decided the winners. The division between reality and make-believe blurred when team members performed a dramatic rescue into a coal pit without much support except for a rope. A simulated car accident, complete with police and much acting, highlighted how the miners could have performed in a real emergency.
Members of the Newcastle Scientific Squad were called to the house in Mitchell Street, Merriweather, after fire extensively damaged bedrooms and a hallway. The empty house caught fire around 10 a.m, with billowing smoke alerting neighbours, passers-by and the fire brigade.
When we got here, the house was very well going at the front, flames coming out the front, but it's unoccupied and no power connected, so we assume that there could be very much suspicious circumstances.
Butterfield out.
Warners Bay Community Hall was the unlikely venue for local ballet students to train with the country's best. Watching on today was Marilyn's own teacher, Tessa Maunder of New Lambton. Marilyn won a ballet scholarship at the age of 16 and has spent more than 20 years as an internationally acclaimed prima ballerina. Now son Stanton is following in her footsteps and is at age 19 a member of the Australian Ballet. Both believe Newcastle is home to a wealth of talent.
There's some lovely talent from Newcastle. Actually, there always has been. Even in the Australian Ballet at the moment, Lisa Bevan's a principal, Liz Tui is a leading soloist, and they're from Newcastle.
Lake Macquarie was the target of a revitalised appeal this year, with 200 more collectors, increasing the number of collection centres from 4 to 7. It's the first time a collection has been done in Warners Bay, and local school children were determined to meet their target. The 2,000 collectors in the Newcastle and Lake Macquarie area came from the Salvation Army, service clubs, schools, churches and the fire brigade. They aim to raise $321,000, with half expected to come from the Red Shield appeal. Nationally, $23 million is sought to help the homeless and struggling families.
$22,628 fans poured through the turnstiles to see the clash of the league's high flyers, the Raiders, and the new boys on the block, the Knights. And Captain Sam Stewart made an absolute mess of the opening euphoria. From the next play, the Raiders nearly went in, but it was David Boyd who saved the day for the Knights. With that little hiccup, the Knights started their own attacks, and it was from a penalty awarded against Gary Coyne for holding the player down that the Knights got on the board with a penalty to Peter Johnson. The reshuffled backline got moving for the locals, and little Stevie Walters instigated a near try. Fullback Gary Worth grabbed a field goal, and Peter Johnston kicked another penalty to give the Knights a half-time lead of 5-0. Canberra got back in the game 2 minutes after the break when Glenn Frendo took too long to get back to a kick by Stewart, and Ferguson capitalised. Worth kicked another field goal to level the scores, but Big Mal Meninga let the Knights know if they wanted to win they would have to do it the hard way. And they did just that. Late in the second half, Mark Sargent made the run that led to the winning try.
Robert McShane's work is known in select circles throughout the world. He's an econometrician specialising in meat market forecasting, and his advice has been sought by many world governments in the past 15 years. Now, however, he'll be putting his expertise to work in more everyday areas as the Hunter Valley Research Foundation's chief economist. His first project for the foundation was to assess the expenditure and employment impact of the Anzac frigate contract, results which formed an important part of a study made public last week. Professor McShane will be taking a leading role in improving the foundation's quarterly reviews, and his employment represents a new focus for the organisation.
The foundation over many years has been collecting information about the regional economy, but what we're trying to do is make that information more useful, more valuable, and interpret it in a more meaningful way.
The Hunter Valley Research Foundation has a budget of $700,000. In 1988, more than one-third of that came from paying contracts. The foundation hopes, with Professor McShane on staff, to be able to increase that component as more businesses respond to the tight economic climate.
Any type of investment decision has to have a forecast, and every technique that you have available to improve the quality of your forecast is a benefit.
Witnesses say the glider took off normally and was performing well under the control of 64-year-old instructor Leo Dykeman when it suddenly veered in the air and began a 100-metre spiral to the ground. The glider snapped trees into splinters as it crashed into thin bushland, landing upside down. Rescuers reached the glider within minutes, only to find the pilot dead and still strapped in his seat. Department of Aviation, Gliding Federation inspectors and scientific police are still at a loss over the cause of the accident. Darren Curtis for NBN News.
As of next Monday, when you get your Maitland Mercury hot off the press, you'll be enjoying it over breakfast and not over afternoon tea. After 146 years of hitting the streets in the afternoon, the Mercury is following worldwide trends and switching to a morning newspaper.
People live a busy lifestyle today. They're less inclined to wait for their newspaper. They want it under an AM publishing arrangement. They can get it from first light in the morning or from any time during the day.
News of the big switch hit the streets this afternoon in the fifth last PM edition of the Mercury. 5 days a week it's hit the streets just after 1 o'clock every afternoon. But today, managing editor John Summerlin admitted that's been, in recent years, a big source of problems. He says more and more readers have been calling on the paper to go morning to end the waiting around for their local news. In the end, says John, it forced the newspaper management to sit down and take a long, hard look at where its future lay.
Well, it's not a move that we did lightly. We've given it considerable thought and it's been in the pipeline for a number of years, but we believe we've made the right decision.
But today signalled more than just a time change for the Mercury. So too on Monday will herald the start of a 6-day week for the newspaper. On June 10, the Mercury's first Saturday edition for 37 years will be published. And while John admits it may take a while for the public to become accustomed to the extra copy, he believes it will succeed.
That'll take some time to get established. It's new, but we do believe that it will find its niche in the market.
The deadline for the best and final offers from both Amacon and AWS is the 18th of June. As that date approaches, the consortia are doing their utmost to pip the other at the post. Last night it was AWS's turn to throw in a wild card, announcing that it was prepared to build 5 frigates in Williamstown dockyard if that was what the government wanted.
The major part of this project, and we've always made this very clear, is the fitting of the weapons, the integration of the control systems, the testing, where most of the employment is involved, and that will continue to be done here in Newcastle.
Several months ago, Amacon proposed a similar option, saying it would build 5 ships in Newcastle. Mr Hoy is adamant the new proposal was not prompted by a perception that Amacon was gaining the upper hand, but says the government has made it clear it favours a 2-yard build.
Amacon, like us, are conscious that the government would be keen to see the work spread evenly throughout the community.
The new offer has been criticised, however, by Managing Director of Amacon, Dr John White. Dr White says he doubts it's feasible for AWS to introduce the new plan so late in the proceedings. According to the New South Wales Consortium, however, the Williamstown option has been in the pipeline since December and is only now being made public. The main loser if AWS is forced to split the work will be Carrington Slipways. The shipbuilder plans to increase its workforce from around 500 to around 750 if it wins the contract. The new option still calls for the first 3 frigates to be built at Tomago, and Carrington says it shouldn't have to alter its staffing forecast very much.
The impact is that we would have to do a little more and perhaps a little earlier commercial work. We've already intended to build commercial ships in this shipyard at the same time. All it means is just more and sooner.
Residents of Corlett have long claimed that establishment of a marina will have a damaging impact on the movement of sand along their beach. However, that argument has been contradicted by a report commissioned by the proposed developer. The study is part of a revised environmental impact statement which foreshadows a development application to Port Stephens Shire Council by Pepper's Anchorage Marina in June. It claims that sand erosion had been a problem at the beach and nearby Sandy Point for some time, but a harbour breakwater should lessen that sand loss. The report also says the wall will intersect longshore drift, causing a build-up of sand resulting in a wider beach. It was proposed that accumulated sand would be redistributed along the beach every 3 years during midwinter. The developers say they voluntarily withdrew their first proposal for the $23 million marina to allow council time to consider submissions by residents and other interest groups.
"11 hectares at Ashton Field near Maitland has been bought for the new school. Originally the school council had planned to build on a less expensive site at Largs, but negotiations fell through.
The Largs site was difficult to organise with council. This is a far better site. It's bigger, it's more centrally located, and it is available and has all the services available to it.
On Monday, architect Warwick Lindsay handed over plans for the project, and building is expected to begin in 2 months. Already $1.5 million has been outlaid by private investors, with another $1 million to be spent on future stages. 160 to 300 students from infants to secondary are expected to enrol. The school council says it's not a case of being unhappy with government education, it's just that a city the size of Maitland deserves the alternative of an independent school.
When Chief Superintendent Russ Cook took the reins of the Newcastle Police District last year, he called for more community policing and an increase in foot patrols. Now, the foot patrol officers at the Newcastle base are being redeployed.
This is just a normal rationalisation of our staff.
Russ Cook says with new police planning, officers are being placed where they are most needed. Within a fortnight, the 10 foot patrol officers will be moved to suburban stations.
When we require them, all we do, instead of having them, say, in the Newcastle Police Station, they'll be at Mayfield and Hamilton. We just bring them in and we'll utilise them where we see that they ought to be used.
The report has highlighted 2 key positions suitable for development of marinas. One is at Throsby Creek between the Hannell Street Bridge and the floating dock, land presently owned by the Maritime Services Board. The other, near the southeast corner of the Stockton Bridge, is owned by the Department of Lands. Both were selected as being the only areas in Newcastle large enough to accommodate present and future boating demands without interfering with the port's commercial shipping. This afternoon, a senior public works official from Sydney confirmed the government would be more than keen to lease both sites to a private developer with a suitable plan. Upon hearing of the verdict, MSB manager Jeff Connell said, in principle, it seemed like a real boost for the harbour. He denied that a private marina would hinder the port's commercial operations, but was unwilling to comment on whether either site would be suitable for such a development. Newcastle City Council Town Clerk Barry Lewis, however, said he had no reservations about the viability of the Stockton Bridge site, though said he would like further to examine the environmental impact of such a development at Throsby Creek. Both said limited interest had been shown in the past by private developers in the Newcastle harbour, but said today's report would definitely generate more interest. Tracy Reid, NBN News.